Okay, multiplying decimals by factors of 10. This is where a lot of people go wrong, particularly with their explanation of how to multiply decimals or your understanding of it. Because initially when you were doing things like 32 times 100, you think that you add the zeros, but in actual fact you're not. You're sliding that number over. So there's no adding of zeros. You've got to get that through your head first. So if I'm going to do 4 and 2/10 and I'm going to multiply it by 10, it means I need to make it 10 times bigger. In actual fact, the decimal point is not moving. The decimal point stays exactly where it is. What I'm doing is giving that number a shove over to make it a little bit bigger. So as I push that number over, that 2 is going to slide on past the decimal there. So it's not the decimal moving, it's the 2. Well, there we go. The 2 is sliding over a bit. So the 2 is going to slide to there and the 4 is going to stay in its place. And now we've got that 42 and then the decimal point, 0. If I wanted to make 42 10 times bigger, if I do 42 multiplied by 10, I know you know the answer to that, but you've got to understand the concept behind it. My decimal point is still going to stay there. I'm still going to take this number here and I'm still going to give it a shove over. So as I shove that box over, that box is going to move over to here. So I've got my 42 and I have to have a placeholder there in the ones place. Because remember, this is the ones and the tens and the hundreds there. Does that make sense? Well, let's go back to our 42 then. And this time I want to multiply 42 by 100. This time I'm going to have to slide it over 2 places. So my decimal place is going to stay in the same spot. I'm going to take that box and I'm going to shove it over 1 place. Then I'm going to shove it over another place. So what happens is it's going to go to here. So I've shoved it over 2 places. If you find it easier, and I know some children do, move it over 1 place first and write that first. And then move it over again. And then write that next one in. Now I've got a placeholder for the tens and a placeholder for the ones. So that's how you get that moving over concept. Alright, so let's try a more complicated decimal then. Let's try one that goes down to the hundredths. So remember, key things that I'm saying to you here is make sure that you understand the decimal place doesn't move. It is the numbers that move past it. Oh, I need an S on hundredths. Alright, so if I've got 35 and 28 hundredths and I want to make that bigger, so I want to do 35 and 28 hundredths and I want to make that 10 times bigger. So I take my number as it is and I shove it over. So I'm moving that box over here. All of those digits are going to move over a place, but my decimal place stays in the same spot. So that means my 2 or my 3 is going to move from there to there. My 5 moves over from there to there. My 2 moves over past that decimal. Sorry about the wrong colour there. And then my 8 moves over to the tenths place. So now I've got 352 and 8 tenths. If I wanted to multiply that by another 10, then again I just push it over. What if I want to make a number smaller? So this time we'll start with a number that I want to make smaller. So if I have 48 and 2 tenths, and I want to make that 10 times small, which means I'm going to do 48 and 2 tenths divided by 10. And instead of shoving it over to your left, you're going to shove it over to your right. So you take that number and you shove it. You leave your decimal place where it is. It's not going anywhere. So you take that whole box and you move it over. So that means that my 4 is moved over, my 8's moved over, my 2's moved over. So I've got 4 and 82. Remember, we're grouping these together to name it. 82 hundredths. 4 and 82 hundredths. I'm going to give you one to do on your own this time, and then you can check after you've paused the video and see whether or not you get it right. Make sure you shove in the right direction. I'm just going to rub these out so they don't confuse you. Okay, now that they're gone, and I have 341 and 15 hundredths, and I want to do 341 and 15 hundredths, and I want to make it 100 times bigger. All right, write it down, pause the video and have a go, then unpause it so you can see whether you got it right or not. Okay, so I hope you paused the video and you actually had a go, you're not just watching now. So I'm shoving this over. I'm going to shove it over 2 places because it's multiplying by 100 times bigger. That's what has to happen. So I take my box. I'm actually going to move it over just 1 place, which is 10 times bigger to start with, because I find it easier to do that. It makes more sense to me. 3, 4, 1, and this one here would have moved over past the decimal, and there's my 5. So that's 10 times bigger. I need to make it another 10 times bigger. So I'm going to move my box over again. I'm going to keep the digits in the same order. Remember, my decimal's still going to be there. 3, 4, 1, 1, 5. So I've got 34,115. 34,115, and there's actually no tenths or hundredths left. Okay, hopefully that makes things more understandable for you. Have a go at some. You can find them online. There's also a number slider you can use online.